I talked about meetings already on this channel. What more is there to say? It turns out that there's a lot more to say about meetings. After my first video on this channel, I got feedback from all over the world. And if I should summarize it in one sentence, it would be that meetings are broken. This time I'll focus on 3 issues. A new type of meeting, what to do when you're in a boring meeting, and how to multitask in meetings. Hi, my name is Aino Corry, and I'm a co-host in Dave Farley's Continuous Delivery channel. Welcome to this channel. If you've not been here before, please hit subscribe, and if you enjoy the content today, hit like as well. After the last video about meetings, I got some feedback that made me realize that there's still a lot to be said about meetings and how to make them better. One viewer said, "While there's some very good advice here on how you have better meetings, it seems worth calling out that in most cases, having too many or bad meetings is usually a symptom that the underlying process is broken." I completely agree with this. What I do here might very well be symptom treatment, but sometimes, unfortunately, also with human bodies, this is all you can do. One of the more surprising feedback I got was that not everyone is empowered to leave a meeting. Sometimes you work in an organization where there would be dire consequences if you left a meeting. It made me think that a lot of the advice I give comes from a position of great privilege, being where I am, who I am, and perhaps also the age that I am. If you are indeed in a position where you are forced to go to meetings and stay in them, and you are not able to change them in any way, then my advice may just be frustrating to you. Watch it anyway though, to support the channel. As mentioned, I'll focus on 3 issues: a new type of meeting, what to do when you're in a boring meeting, and how to multitask in meetings. So, the new type of meeting. Perhaps you're already doing this, but I've been in a lot of organizations that didn't have the concept, so here goes. The planned ad hoc meeting. We could also call it the overflow meeting. Given my rant about how many types of meetings we already have in another episode on this channel, this might seem like a very bad idea, but bear with me. The ad hoc meeting is a specific time scheduled right after a meeting to take care of the discussions that may arise but could not be part of the original meeting. Discussions that made it to the parking lot, or things that for some reason do not fit into the meeting. Let me give you an example. Where I am consulting right now, I have introduced a planned ad hoc meeting after each daily Scrum meeting. That means that right after the 15 minutes daily, we've scheduled another 15 minutes called ad hoc. We use this for discussions that are too long or too detailed for the daily meetings. When people start discussing technical details that may not be relevant for everyone, or specific estimations, or they need help from someone on the team, I stop the conversation, ask them to join the ad hoc afterwards, and get on with the short daily meeting. Then after the daily, I start the ad hoc, and it's important to notice that there are 2 different meetings in the calendar. More about that later. In the ad hoc, I find people from the team that found out in the daily that they needed to join, plus people from the team that are curious or find the discussion might be useful for them as well. I also sometimes find people from another team that have been invited to this short meeting to get an answer to a question or problem. Then I split the meeting into the number of breakout rooms that are needed. Sometimes there's only one discussion and then we can all stay in one room, but often I start 2 to 3 breakout rooms. Yes, this team is very big. I wouldn't recommend, but that's our reality. When I initially introduced these ad hoc meetings, there was not much enthusiasm for this extra meeting. They were doing Scrum without removing any other meetings, so they had a lot of meetings in their calendars. But time has shown that this type of meeting is very useful. We discuss very different things every day. Some days we discuss a specific problem with the design. This is a hardware organization. Sometimes how to get in touch with the right vendor. Sometimes how to link a task in Jira to the right project. Or how to read a detail in a document about an interface between 2 parts of the system. In the latter case, we invited someone from a different team into our ad hoc. We can do that because there are several teams that have decided to have an ad hoc slot at that time of day. Last year we had a 3-month period where one person from another team showed up to every ad hoc meeting we had because he was an expert in what we did at the moment, and people often needed his help. Since he was not part of our team, showing up in the dailies would have been a waste of time for him and would not have given the opportunity to ask him specific questions or ask for his advice on things. Not everyone has to be in the extra meeting every day, only the people with more to discuss. It turns out that most of the small issues can be solved in 5, 10 or 15 minutes if we do it right away, instead of starting over 4 to 6 hours later. And last but not least, we don't need to find time in people's calendars during the day to talk, because we have these 15 minutes set aside for an extra chat. This means we don't waste everyone's time in the daily with boring scheduling talk for the following meeting. Are you available after lunch? How about 3 o'clock? How about tomorrow? Yawn. As an added bonus, there's 15 minutes extra in the day if you're not needed in the ad hoc. I would encourage you to try this out as an experiment in your team. And by the way, this is completely different from just making the 15-minute daily into a 30-minute daily. If you do that and people hate it, don't say it was my idea. Here's why it's different. When you finish the Scrum Daily, it means that you change the mode you're in from getting a quick overview of the flow of tasks and a peripheral view of the soundness of the development. When you enter the ad hoc, it's another type of meeting. This has a different energy, there are fewer people and more in-depth discussion, and we are often seeking some sort of solution to a problem. Another thing that makes it important that it is 2 meetings is the possibility of inviting people to the ad hoc only. That is, as we've heard before, they can have a standing invitation to it and join every day in a period, or be called in via chat when they're needed. No one wants a daily meeting with 20 people invited, but it's okay in the ad hoc, because people have set a time aside for it, and thus they can join with very short notice. Now, I mentioned something about boring meetings at the start of this video, and here it comes, right when your attention span is fading away. I personally find it very difficult to be in meetings where I'm not the facilitator. Not every time, but often. I have some very specific ideas about what a good meeting is, which makes me have very little patience with meetings that are not facilitated well or indeed at all. And besides gnawing my knuckles, I do several different things to stay sane in these meetings. I should point out that I try to avoid meetings that I do not think are valuable to me, or where it is valuable for other people based on my experience or my sense of logic that I am there. Despite that, meetings can still be a pain to me if they're not well facilitated, because it leads to discussions that are meaningless, painful to listen to, or simply not interesting to me. When that happens, I start focusing on other things, which might be my email, the news, or perhaps even Facebook. I've stopped looking at YouTube videos because it makes me laugh at awkward moments. Now, the trouble with these things are that it makes me read, and when I read, I'm using the part of my brain that deals with words. The technical word for that part of the brain is the word brain. And when I use my word brain for something else, I'm unable to follow the meeting, and eventually they will all pause and wait for my brilliant answer to some issue that I didn't hear a word of. And I have to say the dreaded words, "Sorry, could you please repeat?" I find it so embarrassing to say that in a meeting, because I know how it feels to be on the other side of that. Everyone else is thinking, "Idiot, you thought you were smart enough to multitask, and now we have to hear everything again, just because you thought you could read the news." In order to avoid that, I've started having small things I can do that take the top of the frustration and, dare I say, boredom, but that does not have to do with words. I play Candy Crush, I fidget with fidget toys, there's a link to some in the notes, or I varnish my nails. When people see me and compliment my nails, I smile and think of the boring meeting that enabled me to make these nails. You should try it. When I was a consultant at Lego, I used to love being in the meetings there because they have a bowl of bricks to play with in the meeting rooms. Clicking a pencil can be disturbing to other people in the meeting, but the sound of Lego building is so pleasant. If you have a non-verbal boredom mitigator for your meetings, please share it with other people in the comments. If you would like to become an expert in facilitating meetings, you could join my course about retrospective facilitation. It is focused on retrospectives, but the learning holds for all kinds of meetings. Oh, and by the way, you might be thinking that you are the exception, that you can multitask and you do not need to varnish your nails at meetings. If so, you're most likely wrong. Many people mistakenly believe that multitasking is a sign of high intelligence and believe that it's even beneficial for brain health. However, the reality is that our brains are not designed to multitask. We're actually wired to focus on and complete one task at a time. When we think we multitask, what our brains are actually doing is rapidly switching between tasks. And this constant switching puts a strain on our brain and exhausts it, making it less efficient. This has a negative impact on our ability to concentrate even when we're not multitasking anymore. The brain in itself can work on a lot of different issues at the same time, but our bottleneck is our attention, our working memory. People can only process information when they pay attention to it, and we cannot pay attention to several things at the same time. According to Dr. Jennifer Davis, a clinical neuropsychologist and associate professor of psychiatry, one study finds that individuals who engage in high levels of media multitasking have smaller brain volumes in the cingulate cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for regulating emotions and behavior. However, it is unclear whether multitasking causes permanent changes in the brain, or if people with smaller volumes in this region are naturally more inclined to multitask. The usual causality correlation issue. So, I lied. I'm not going to tell you how you can multitask in meetings. I will instead urge you to stop doing it immediately. The one exception is if you're doing something non-verbal that you can do so well that you're almost on autopilot, like walking or eating. In my book Retrospectives Anti-Patterns, I share my experience with facilitating retrospectives, but the anti-patterns in the book are useful for all types of meetings, not just retrospectives. Since it is about anti-patterns, it describes what can go wrong when you're facilitating a meeting, but also how to improve the situation or avoid getting into a bad situation at all. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in learning more ideas and techniques for teamwork and leadership in tech teams, check out our teamwork and leadership playlist that you can see here.